It's that time again. It's time to ruffle a bunch of feathers and pit all of the captains against each other. Oh, this is going to be sweet. Let's get right into it. I'm going to crack my knuckles and get going. I'm Sean Ferry for TrekCulture, and here is Star Trek Every Captain Ranked Worst to Best 2023 edition. We're kicking things off with number 14, a dishonorable mention, Gabriel Lorca. He may not actually have been a captain, but this list would be incomplete without mentioning Lorca, the Mirror Universe imposter who was able to pose successfully as his counterpart. Lorca attempted a coup against the Terran Emperor, but his ship was destroyed in conflict with her warship, and he was thrown into the Prime Universe due to a transporter malfunction through an ion storm. He was easily able to slip into Captain Lorca's life, becoming the commanding officer of Starfleet's newest top-secret ship, the Discovery. He hacked Discovery's spore drive to return to his home universe and used Michael Burnham, who he lured aboard the ship, to reach Emperor Giorgio in to seek his revenge on her for killing his crew. Using his experience from the Terran Empire, Lorca was able to coach Stamets and his team into perfecting the spore drive, and despite being a hostile imposter, he led some devastating counterattacks against the Klingons. He was an undeniably skilled commander and an even better liar. Number 13, honorable mention to Dal Rael. Dal definitely deserves to be shouted out as the captain of the unofficial Protostar crew, though it shouldn't come as a surprise that he's not high on this list. Dal is still learning, and he's made a lot of mistakes. He took the Protostar into the Romulan neutral zone to escape from the Dauntless, which endangered everyone on board, but it was a creative way to prevent the Dauntless from being infected by the living construct aboard the Protostar. Dal has shown a sincere desire to grow. The Protostar's holograms taught him the importance of the Prime Directive and other Starfleet rules, which helped steer him in the right direction. By destroying the Protostar, Dal was able to keep the living construct from infecting any other vessels, and all criminal charges for stealing the ship were dropped. Dal and the others, aside from Gwyn, were then allowed to serve under Janeway as warrant officers in training, a step towards them eventually being able to join Starfleet officially. Although he didn't serve as a captain officially, Dal had to fight for his command more than many of the others on this list. Number 12, Carol Freeman. Carol Freeman was a relatively unknown captain. Her ship, the Cerritos, was primarily assigned to second contact missions, which were generally considered lower stakes assignments. Freeman wasn't the best at organizing her crew. Her excessive crackdown on buffer time led to her crew being overworked, tired, and unable to do their jobs. Captain Freeman was especially cruel towards her daughter, Beckett Mariner. Beckett was eventually forced off the ship when she gave a testimony about serving on the Cerritos to the Federation News Network. Carol Freeman assumed that the interview was entirely negative, but Beckett was actually incredibly respectful. Captain Freeman's pride in her crew wasn't always a bad thing, though. For example, she correctly predicted that the AI-powered Texas-class ships were not to be trusted. Carol Freeman has been a fine Starfleet captain, just not one of the best. Number 11, Liam Shaw. Liam Shaw was one of only 10 lucky survivors from the USS Constance, a ship that was destroyed by Locutus during the Battle of Wolf 359. Likely due to this experience, Shaw was a particularly no-nonsense captain. He liked to do things by the books, and he considered the adventures of the Enterprise D to be largely irresponsible. He served as captain of the Titan A for 5 years and gained a reputation for being generally unfriendly. He was openly hostile to his new first officer, 7 of 9, by referring to her as her birth name against her wishes because of his hatred for the Borg. We learned later that Shaw was actually going to recommend Seven to be promoted to captain, and he finally referred to her by her real chosen name before he died. But he still made things unnecessarily hostile for Seven for a long time, and that's not a quality of a great captain. Overall, Shaw was great at his job, but it seems like he was just very unapproachable to his crew at times, and he didn't take risks, which really held him back from being one of the greats. Number 10, Cristobal Rios. Cristobal Rios left Starfleet as a commander after an incident aboard his former ship, the Imam Majid, which left him with post-traumatic dysphoria. His captain was ordered to kill 2 innocent people, who we later learned were synths, by Commodore O, otherwise the Imam Majid would be destroyed with all hands. Rios confronted him, and in his grief, the captain killed himself. Rios then covered up for the murders, just as his captain was ordered to by Commodore O, and reported that his captain died by suicide for no apparent reason. This trauma stayed with Rios his whole life. He left Starfleet and became the captain of an unregistered freighter named La Serena, which he ran with the help of several holograms of himself. He rejoined Starfleet with the official rank of captain and took command of the USS Stargazer. He was instrumental in restoring the timeline of the second season of Picard, but chose to remain in the 21st century to live a calm life with his new family, Teresa Ramirez and her son Ricardo. As captain of La Serena and the Stargazer, Rios was able to move beyond his past mistakes and become a truly great captain. He does, however, show a blatant disregard for the Temporal Prime Directive by choosing to stay in the past. Number 9, Philippa Giorgio. To be clear, we're talking about Captain Giorgio here, not her mirror counterpart, Emperor Giorgio, who we've seen much more of. Captain Giorgio died in the second episode of Discovery, but we've learned enough about her in those episodes and in dialogue to include her here. When we first met her in the Vulcan Hello, Philippa Giorgio was working to save an alien society from a deadly drought. Giorgio had a real skill for using outdated technology effectively. She traced a pattern in the sand with her footprints to show the Shenzhou where to find her and Burnham. She also kept an old telescope as one of her more prized possessions, which proved effective when the crew were trying to see a distant object that was obscured by a scattering field. Giorgio knew the horrors of war and tried desperately to resolve the conflict with the Klingons peacefully, but when it became clear that that was impossible, she personally went aboard the Klingon ship with Burnham to capture Takuvma. Unfortunately, her bold choice to lead the away mission proved fatal, and her body was left on the Klingon ship, where it was later eaten by the starving crew. Charming. Number 8. Michael Burnham. In 2256, Michael Burnham was on track to become a captain, but her career was set back when she attempted a mutiny against her commanding officer, Philippa Giorgio, to fire preemptively on a Klingon ship. The battle that followed Burnham's attempted mutiny was the beginning of an all-out war with the Klingons, and it left an undeniable stain on her service record, though her responsibility was never proven. She was, however, able to redeem herself throughout the first 3 seasons of Discovery by helping to end the war, defeating Lorca and Control, and solving the mystery of the burn. So far, we've only seen 1 season of Burnham as captain, but she's already managed to save the Federation yet again by leading the mission to find Species 10C and to put a stop to their planet-consuming dark matter anomalies. This was one of the most sensitive diplomatic missions in human history, and Burnham performed it excellently, successfully convincing Species 10C that humanoid life should be valued. Burnham has only been the captain of Discovery for a short time, but she has already shown herself to be a skilled diplomat. Sometimes she makes snap decisions that don't work out, but these decisions are always grounded in her own sense of Vulcan logic. Number 7. Saru. We first got to see Saru serving as a captain when Discovery was lost in the Mirror Universe, and the ship's former captain, Lorca, was exposed as an imposter. Saru successfully returned his crew home after defeating Lorca, then led the mission to Kronos, where the Klingons were forced into a truce. For his role in this mission, Saru was awarded the Starfleet Medal of Honor, but afterwards went back to serving as the ship's first officer, now under the temporary command of Captain Pike. After Discovery's journey into the future, Saru once again became the ship's captain, and was able to make contact with the Federation, help solve what caused the burn, and negotiate a truce between United Earth's Defense Force and the raiders from Titan. Saru was a humble captain. He deferred to the judgment of his experts like Stamets, Tilly, and Culber, but he always made sure to keep them in check. Saru is a very by-the-books captain, which can be both a good and a bad thing. Number 6. James Kirk. James Kirk's name is well known throughout the Federation. His historic 5-year mission aboard the NCC-1701 brought him into contact with many new alien cultures and unexplained phenomena. Kirk later became an admiral, serving as chief of Starfleet operations before returning to the Enterprise. After saving Earth from the whale probe in Star Trek IV, Kirk was demoted back to the rank of captain for disobeying the orders of a superior officer. He went on to save the Federation president from assassination in Star Trek VI, which allowed the Khitomer Conference to go forward, ushering in a new era of peace between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. Although he was one of the most famous Starfleet captains of all time, he had a few flaws that keep him from being the greatest. He was impulsive, he treated his orders more like suggestions, and his away missions had an exceptionally high mortality rate for redshirts. He also loved to ignore the Temporal Prime Directive and any other laws governing time travel. According to the Federation's Department of Temporal Investigations, Kirk amassed more temporal violations than anyone else on file, with a total of 17 separate incidents. Though Kirk's biggest mistake was probably leaving Khan and his fellow augments on the planet Ceti Alpha 5. No one from Starfleet noticed when the planet became uninhabitable, and the augments were driven mad with a lust for revenge. Kirk surely went on to regret that mistake. Number 5. Christopher Pike. Captain Pike was Star Trek's first captain and a stellar example for all those who would follow. His character has been developed so much more in Discovery and Strange New Worlds. We learned that Pike was actually warned that he would be disfigured in his future and confined to a wheelchair, but he still chose to go through with it to protect the future. This is a level of commitment to the Temporal Prime Directive that no other captain even approaches. Pike's style of command was generally friendly. He made nicknames for his crew, spent time with them off hours, and took an interest in getting to know them. He took his work seriously, but treated the crew more like a family than his subordinates. Pike was actually so beloved that he had a medal named after him, the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor, which is considered one of the highest honours celebrating remarkable leadership, meritorious conduct, and acts of personal bravery, all of which were embodied by Pike himself. Number 4. Catherine Janeway. Captain Janeway's adventures in the Delta Quadrant were absolutely legendary. She commanded Starfleet's first ventures into this new region of space, and it's been said she made first contact with more species than any captain since James Kirk. She made the questionable decision to destroy the Caretaker's array, which stranded her crew on the wrong side of the galaxy, but also prevented the Kazon from using the array to invade the Ocampans. She catches a lot of flack for this choice, but it was an undeniably selfless act, one which kept her from her friends and family for 7 years. As a captain, Janeway started a cultural revolution within the Q continuum, stole advanced technology from the future, and dealt several crippling blows to the Borg collective. Her decisions sometimes backfired, like when she made an enemy of Species 8472 by teaming up with the Borg, but her mistakes are massively outweighed by her accomplishments. She beat all of the odds and kept most of her crew alive through one of the most hazardous and lonely missions in Starfleet history. Number 3, Jonathan Archer. So much can be said about Archer's career as captain of the NX-01 Enterprise. He pioneered many of Starfleet's core values, including the Prime Directive. He facilitated contact with the Klingon Empire, worked to unify the Andorians, Vulcans, Tellarites, and humans, which eventually created the United Federation of Planets, and fought in multiple wars. He was the first human to officially confirm the existence of time travel, and met several players in the temporal Cold War. When Earth was attacked by the Xindi, Archer led the Enterprise to the Delphic Expanse to find their weapon and prevent them from launching on another attack. Eventually, the weapon was launched at Earth against the Council's wishes, and Archer and Sato were forced to destroy it. Archer was a trailblazer. He explored the final frontier before it was cool, with an undeniable faith of the heart that made him one of the most impressive officers in Starfleet history. Number 2, JeanLuc Picard. As captain of the Enterprise D, and later the Enterprise E, JeanLuc Picard made official first contact with some of the galaxy's most powerful species, including the Q, the Borg, the Travelers, and many others. Picard seemed very stern and serious at first glance, but those who knew him know that he was actually a deeply emotional man with a strong love for art and history. During his exploration of the galaxy, he often found himself in the role of the diplomat. He impressed the Continuum and convinced them that humanity had become peaceful. He helped to uncover a common ancestor of all humanoid life in the galaxy, brought down an alien conspiracy in Starfleet's ranks, and saved humanity from the Borg on at least 2 occasions. While some, such as Captains Shaw and Cisco, may blame Picard for his role in Wolf 359, Jean-Luc was not responsible for his actions as Locutus. Beyond that, it was his connection to the collective that allowed the Enterprise to deactivate the cube. Captain Picard's achievements are truly uncountable. He defeated Shinzon in hand-to-hand combat after his coup in the Romulan Empire, and he was even one of the first people to support the rights of artificial life forms like Data. Number 1, Benjamin Cisco. The Cisco has a bit of an advantage here, seeing as his whole destiny was pre-planned by the Prophets, specifically the Prophet that possessed his mother, Sarah. His fate was to serve as the emissary of Bajor, a role he was initially reluctant to accept, but soon grew into as he realized more and more that the Prophets were looking out for him. After leading Deep Space Nine for 3 years as a commander, Cisco was finally promoted to captain in the episode The Adversary. He spent the Dominion War as a captain, frequently leaving the station to command the Defiant in battle. Unlike many of the others on this list, Cisco was a military leader. With the guidance of the Prophets, Cisco made the tactical decision to warn Bajor not to join the Federation in the episode Rapture, which allowed them to remain neutral when Deep Space Nine was seized by the Dominion. After Cisco regained control of the station, Dukat managed to cut off the Prophets from Bajor by closing the wormhole and darkening the Bajoran orbs. Cisco, however, was able to locate the hidden orb of the emissary despite being misled by the Pa-Wraiths, and used it to restore the wormhole and Bajor's connection to their gods. After invading Cardassia, Cisco allowed Odo to heal the enemy changeling from the virus created by Section 31, an act of peace that ended the war once and for all. He undoubtedly made some mistakes during the war. In particular, his role in tricking the Romulans into the fight was something he struggled to accept. Still, though, Cisco remains the most accomplished Starfleet captain on this list. He was a brilliant commander, a military genius, and a hero to the entire Alpha Quadrant. Without his help, the Dominion would have been able to conquer not only Earth, but also Kronos, Romulus, Cardassia Prime, Bajor, and almost any other world they wanted. That is everything for our list today, folks. Now, thank you so much to Marcia Fry for writing this. Make sure that you go and check their article out on whatculture.com. I have, of course, been Sean Ferrick. You can follow me on the various socials. Just check my name and I will come up. Don't forget to follow TrekCulture on Twitter at TrekCulture, and of course over on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. You are awesome, you are wonderful, you are stunning, and you know what? You're at the top of my list. Live long and prosper, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.